And we've been talking a lot about the environmental damage done to the Potomac River, and that could have an impact on our area's seafood. Our Matt Gregory spoke with a local oyster farmer about their business.
So even though many of the oyster beds or oyster harvesting areas are well south of this section of the Potomac River, many of the watermen we spoke to said they're worried about how much the sewage spill and the stigma associated with it could crush their business, especially at a time when the oyster industry is struggling to make a comeback. The sewage spill in the D.C. area has made a mess downstream, especially for oyster harvesting.
Health department came out to start with and closed bridge to the 301 bridge, a precautionary shutdown.
Over Zoom, we talked with Robert T. Brown, the president of the Maryland Watermen's Association. So following the sewage spill, Maryland, as a precaution, restricted harvesting of shellfish along the Potomac.
They didn't know how far it would go or whatever. And what prolonged it was so much ice they couldn't get out, and they and test the water to see, how far it was.
Now, testing continues to show no contamination in the Potomac River oyster harvesting areas, so in the lower Potomac, harvesting has resumed there. However, restrictions are still in place out of an abundance of caution near Cedar Point Neck down to the 301 bridge in Charles County. And for watermen like Brown, that news is a shell half full.
If you had market, you were doing real good. A lot of people didn't have market, but maybe 1-2 days a week.
Before the spill, ice stalled the oyster harvesting, and not to mention, not a lot of buyers.
People just aren't consuming oysters like they used 2 years ago. Seems like we've missed a couple of generations of people that are doing it.
That's why Brown says after this sewage mess, the oyster industry is going to need new marketing, starting with announcements from state officials.
We need them to come out with a strong stand on it, saying, look, we've tested this, this, and this. Everything is clear.
Now, the Maryland Department of Natural Resources did say this week they are going to extend the oyster harvesting season by 2 weeks to help watermen with all of these issues they've been facing. Along the Potomac River, I'm Matt Gregory, WUSA 9.
And